In real estate consulting, what a client first asks for, it's almost never what they actually need. That first request is really just a symptom. So today, we're going to dive into the art of diagnosis, how you turn that surface-level question into a strategy that's powerful, targeted, and actually works. So, a client might walk in and say something simple like this. But here's the thing, that's not the real problem. Think of it like a cough. Our job isn't to just hand them a bottle of cough syrup. Our job is to figure out what's causing the cough in the first place. And this right here, this is the heart of what we do. The real value of a great consultant isn't just in answering that first question. It's in digging deep to uncover the fundamental decision the client is really struggling with. Are they thinking about selling, refinancing, maybe planning their estate? That's the real puzzle we need to solve.
Look, this isn't just some nice-to-have idea. For many of us, it's a professional mandate. The law itself tells us to perform analysis and diagnosis, which is a clear instruction: diagnose before you prescribe. We're paid to be advisors, not just order takers.
So how do we actually kick off this diagnosis? Well, it all starts with two foundational layers. First, understanding what the client truly wants to achieve. And second, identifying the real-world limitations that they're operating within. Let's be real. A client's objective is never just make me money. You've got to dig deeper. Are they playing the long game, looking for capital growth? Or do they need steady cash flow from rent right now? Do they need to sell fast? Or maybe, just maybe, it's something less obvious, like a tax advantage, or even creating some kind of social impact. You have to get specific.
And that leads us to a really, really important distinction: separating the client's stated want from their fundamental need. A client might say they want the absolute highest price possible, but what if they truly need to close the deal within 60 days to fund another opportunity? Uncovering that hidden need, it changes absolutely everything.
Okay, now it's time for a reality check. Every single strategy is boxed in by constraints. It could be financial, legal, physical, you name it. A brilliant development plan is completely useless if it ignores these boundaries. Proposing a high-rise on a lot that's zoned for single-family homes, that's a non-starter, and it doesn't matter how good the numbers look. All right, so once we've got a handle on the big picture, the goals and the guardrails, it's time to go deeper. This is where we start layering in the hard numbers, the legal realities, and that crucial, very personal element of risk.
So this is where the rubber really meets the road. It's where we take all those big picture objectives we just talked about and translate them into cold, hard, measurable metrics. It's all about defining what financial success actually looks like for this person and this project.
And this means getting super specific. What's the minimum internal rate of return, or IRR, that they'll even consider? The project's own growth rate. What are their cash flow needs month to month? How much debt can they realistically handle? And of course, you can't forget about things like taxes and basic holding costs, because those things will quietly eat away at your returns if you're not careful. And here's the absolute key. You have to establish a clear financial deal breaker, a line in the sand. Is it a 15% IRR, a 5-year payback period? Whatever it is, without this benchmark, any analysis is just a fun academic exercise. This gives you a clear go or no-go signal for any strategy you come up with. But here's the thing, a great strategy isn't just about the money. It needs to be supported by two other critical pillars: the legal framework and timing. If you get one of those wrong, the whole thing can just collapse. So we're talking about checking everything, from making sure the title is clean to confirming the zoning is right. And timing? Man, timing is everything. A strategy to sell high sounds great, but it's useless if the client has a huge loan maturing in 6 months that forces them to sell quickly in a down market. The best move can completely flip depending on your time horizon. And now, we get to the final piece of the diagnosis, and honestly, it's the most personal one. This has nothing to do with the property. It's all about the person. We have to understand the client's psychological and financial ability to handle risk. You see, clients generally fall into one of these profiles. Is your client conservative, where not losing a single penny is the #1 goal? Or are they aggressive, chasing those huge returns even if it means taking on huge risks? Proposing a speculative development to a conservative client is a recipe for absolute disaster. The strategy must match the person. Okay, so we've done all the hard work. We've diagnosed the objectives, the constraints, the financials, and the risk tolerance. Now for the payoff.
This is where we take that vague, fuzzy request and forge it into a sharp, professional question that we can actually solve. Just look at this transformation. We go from how much is my land worth, which, let's be honest, is kinda all over the place, to something incredibly powerful and focused. By framing it with their constraints, their financial targets, and their time horizon, we create a crystal clear mission. And here's how that translates into real-world work. A client says, I want to sell my property. Simple, right? But for us, that becomes a detailed scope of work. It's not just about finding a price, it's about building a whole strategy. This is how you bridge the gap from a casual conversation to a professional engagement. And this is it. This is the aha moment. This is what a perfectly framed advisory problem looks like. Notice how every single piece we've talked about is in there. The specific property, the timeline, the financial limits, the minimum return. This is a question a professional consultant can really sink their teeth into and answer.
So you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of work just to ask a question. But why do we go through all this trouble? Because skipping this diagnostic step, the risks are just massive.
Look, if you don't define the problem correctly, you're going to end up with an elegant, expensive answer to the wrong question. Your whole analysis becomes irrelevant, your recommendations are totally unusable, and you could seriously increase your client's risk, not to mention your own professional liability. So, here's the takeaway. Before you even think about running numbers or writing a report, go through this checklist. These are the non-negotiable questions you have to answer to go from being just a service provider to a true professional advisor. This is where you create real value. So I'll leave you with this one thought to chew on. The next time a client comes to you with what seems like a simple request, just pause and ask yourself, am I diagnosing the real problem here, or am I just selling the easiest solution? The answer to that question makes all the difference.